I haven't been out on the bike for a couple of weeks or so, I think, and it's a nice warm dry day. We are supposed to be getting some rain all the time, but it hasn't happened here yet. It's been extremely dry. So I thought I'd just go down the Esk Valley and take a few photos with a big camera here and there. And this is the Insta 360. There is a sort of snag with this. You can't actually do onboard recording really well with my either with that camera or with the helmet I had on. There's the Castleton Co-op site. Apparently somebody's bought that or is going to do some work on it again. I was quite surprised at the audio from the camera. It's not too badly affected by wind. It's quite reasonable, sort of like engine noise and things. But you just can't talk to the camera at all on the bike with this setup. I mean, it is possible to do it with like an adapter piece, which I do actually have, but it's too much faff about to set it up and disconnect yourself from it. When you're actually riding along, you can usually think of something to waffle on about, and usually the great majority of it gets deleted later because it's too silly. So with a 360 camera you can turn it around like that to look at yourself, which it makes a great shot, but it's not the most interesting. I suppose it does show how you're cornering, whereas if you have it facing forward, you just see the road sweeping on ahead of you. This section here has been resurfaced because Wednesday this week, well, it's the 7th, the Tour of Britain cycle race is coming through. It's going to be lashing down probably, but they've been resurfacing roads here, there and everywhere, while the road to Westdale is literally collapsing, and that one didn't need doing, but they've done that. Duke of Wellington on the left there. That's always a very difficult junction to get out of because you're trying to look both ways at once, and it's actually on a bike it's quite difficult because you're controlling the clutch because it's steep to get out, and it's steep the other way as well, so even balancing and tiptoeing a bit is not easy. It's the last weekend of school summer holidays, so I was expecting it to be quite busy, but it isn't really too bad. I mean, obviously there was plenty of people about. I think it would have been a bit mad if you'd say gone down to Whitby, but I don't think they go back on Monday tomorrow. It's Sunday today, but Tuesday or even Wednesday is quite common. Certainly Tuesday they often have like a teacher training day at the start. So we're coming down to the National Park Centre. That's part of the reason people are walking about, I suppose, more than the other places. I always like this farm on the left, the old buildings there. This National Park Centre, it's going to be closed for about 2 weeks shortly because they're putting in ground source heat and new windows and things like that. You always have plenty of money for things like that. Not many people in the car park. The last couple of years I've really taken to having the open face of it when you're just poodling about local like this. one of the only snags with it is that you can't lock it to the bike easily. You can only hook it by the strap. So if I stop anywhere, not in Whitby or somewhere, obviously I just tend to hide the helmet in a bush or something. Or it's not too difficult to carry. You can even use it a bit like a shopping basket if you just nip it into a shop or something. But it was inexpensive. I think it was about £40 that one. It's not a particularly nice one, but it looks alright. I quite like it, to be honest. It's really comfortable, and the surprising thing is how you feel like your head's been sort of protected. You might not have thought, looking at it, that you think, oh, you're worried about your chin, but you do feel like you've got a helmet on. But at the same time, if you stop and say you're taking photos with the camera, it feels like you don't need to take it off. Right, well, that's Duck Bridge, and while that's a little bit naughty, if you notice on the sign, which you can't see, it says no car traffic. It doesn't mention motorbikes, so that's perfectly legal. So I make a point of doing it because it's fun. Before they put the Ford in, most cars could fit over there. You could just about squeeze through with a Land Rover. But I honestly think if you tried to go through with like a modern pickup, you probably would have got stuck. We're just going up to Danby Castle, and there was some sort of, looked like a wedding going on. There's people in wedding type attire, like smart suits. I didn't actually see a bride. And on the right there's quite a few cars parked. You can't really see them, except maybe flashing through the hedge. Danby Castle, it's unusual, and it's still lived in to a point. That part there is part of the original castle, really. Obviously it's been modified into a farmhouse, but some of the rooms inside are the original 1200s or something, so it's absolutely ancient building. And they use it for Danby Courtleet meetings once a year or something. It's a Butterwitz farm. Along Fryup, there's several dairy farms. Most of them are Smiths, and been using zero grazing, not for all the cows, but for some of the groups. And how that's working this year I do not know, because we have no grass whatsoever here. But I do notice that the dairy farms are putting more slurry on, and perhaps in general have younger layers, and perhaps to some extent are in more favoured locations. They do seem to have more grass than we have. But Fryup is a good example where some parts are just as dry as here with no grass at all, and other parts it's not doing too badly. We do have that a little bit in Westerdale. Anywhere that's strong clay is doing a sort of okay. Like across the river it isn't too bad. But it is still extremely dry. I don't want to turn this into a weather channel, but I do record weather details here at home, and we've got only for the year so far, 1st of September or thereabouts, it's 212mm, which isn't even a third of normal. And August had 9mm, but even that 9mm would have been a decent soak, except that it was like half a dozen little sprinkly showers of 1 or 2mm, and then by the end of the day it had gone, so it hasn't done very much. It's a little bit greener than it was. There's like a faint green sheen. This is a nice little spot through here. There's like two quite pretty houses either side of the road. I don't think it actually has a name as such. It is almost like a hamlet. And then further on there's Fairy Cross, which is that is a named hamlet. Fairy Cross Plain. I don't know what this one's called. There's two houses there and a farm alongside. after this farm, on the left, there used to be a little church. I suppose it was called Fryup Church. I had a slight mishap here, listen. Oh yeah, I missed it, but what happened was, I saw that van, and I was going to stop, but then he stopped as well, and I just got so close to the curb that I caught my foot peg on the, there's a sort of a stone curb, or little stones alongside. I wonder what the hell had happened for a minute, but it was just a foot peg, and they are on like spring loaded, so no harm was done. On the right here, they've got all these trees in tubes, and the whole area has turned into a great mass of thistles and dead grass. I don't know how they were allowed to do that there, because it's quite a special landscape up there. It's like an ice age formation of a conical hill. I mean, don't get me wrong, I quite like to see a few new trees, but I don't approve in general like whole fields, let alone whole farms, being planted. You know, a few in a corner or a shelter belt, or even a single field here and there might be not too bad, but when they've done like field after field with stupid trees in tubes, and it isn't even like a commercial woodland, it's just like hazel bushes and stuff like that. So they came down here, and I noticed they were doing some road work, well, ditch drainage work at Snowballs. I thought I'd have a look at that, and I also quite like down in the deep hole there's lots of very tall beech trees, and it's extremely dark and shady in there, so I thought I'd stop and have a look. But I've got some photos, but I don't know whether I shall include them or not. So now we're going up into the other side of Fryup. I can never remember which is Great Fryup and which is Little Fryup, if that's the word. I suppose this is called Great Fryup because it's the bigger side, there's more farms, and the village hall is there, and it goes a bit further up, but not much. I was a bit wary because what I was talking about at the start of this segment, there's been some sort of trials bike event, and there's a lot of vans with motorbikes, off-road bikes inside or on the back or on trailers. I mean, they're not mad drivers, but it's so narrow this road that even with a bike you haven't got very good visibility due to all the vegetation. This is one of my favourite little rides. You can do it even in the middle of winter with the off-road bike, especially if you don't mind getting it salty, because it's really only like an hour or two, and you can go on top of Fryup and come back, and it's going to feel like you've had a little bit of an excursion. I should know the name of these farms on the left. I've seen. We've actually had like BATA wagon drivers and things asking where they were, and I've been able to tell them, but I can't think of their name offhand. Somebody has some nice heifers there on the right, dairy heifers. I just can't quite think who has a significant dairy farm in Fryup up this side. I suppose it could be from Smith's on the other side of the hill. I think it's Andrew Smith at the top of the dale. I just get them confused. I mean, I know Mike and Stephen's still at the other one. Oh God, I forget the name of that now. Anyway, I think Stephen's still there, but Mike stopped. He sold his cows. Someone else has the land there, but I think he still lives there. Crag Farm. Because they were both same age as me at school. So in fact, Mike stopped milking cows very shortly before I did. About 12 years ago now. So we're just coming up to this abrupt left turn, and you can turn right there, but it's just a dead end, and you only go maybe half a mile at most, and you're like in somebody's farmyard, and there's a gate, and I don't know when the council road exactly ends, but it gets increasingly difficult to turn around even with the bike, so I occasionally got up there and just a little look round. But it looked like there was some work being done at that farm, like building work. So we get into the serious wild stuff now when you got all the grass down the middle of the road. We're coming along to Agilon House here, which was always a rather Raws. They had cattle and have sold them all, the Limmies. You only have sheep and there is some cattle in one of these fields, not the main herd they had before. We always used to store silage bales along these roadsides. And somewhere, I don't know if I'll actually see it on the camera, but there was quite a big stone laid in the road off the wall. I almost stopped and put it back on myself, and then I thought, well, if somebody's in the yard, I'll mention it, because it looked like it had literally just fallen off. I mean, it's big enough to see, but if you hit it, you'd know about it. It's somewhere at this point when I had the camera pointing this way. There. When Dennis Raw came here, he still has a digger, and he came here and did a ditch for us, and he said, once I tell you the name of our farm, you'll never forget it. He said, it's Agilon House. It's such a funny name. I don't know if it's a biblical name or what. But there's the farm and house on the right, and then there's like another farm here. It's like two, isn't it? And then there's another house here, look. So I honestly don't really know if they're all Raws or what's going on. This is a nice little stretch all the way you go up here, and you've got grass down the middle. It's actually nice in some ways, nicer coming down, because you're looking across to the best part of Fry. But going up is pleasing as well, because you can see where it's like going down there. That's why I did that. But when you're going up, there's a few sort of isolated trees, and then the cattle grid. It's quite interesting. Cattle grid. and then we climbed quite steeply up onto the moor. And I was quite surprised to see, just up this bank, I'm not sure it was actually only on the moor, but they've been putting salt heaps out already. There's one, look, on the right. For winter, for the ice. It's the 4th of September. Mind you, you can get icy conditions in some ways. It's worse some sort of it earlier in the autumn when you get a bit caught out because it can be wet and catch them icy mornings. So we get to the top here, and it's a sort of crossroads, but you can't go straight on with most vehicles, but you can do it with my off-road bike. So I cut out quite a section here, then we go on to Glaisdale. Because you can go to Glaisdale straight across. I could have done it with that bike because it's not wet and muddy, but it's quite rough and bumpy, it's a bit hard on it. With my other bike I'd go straight on. Here we've gone through Glaisdale village and descending. This is called Underhill, I think that's what it's called, this area. You can go, it's not exactly a shortcut down to Beggars Bridge, but I suppose it was the original road where you go past the tennis court and what was the, I think, Moon and Sixpence. I was just stopping because there's a little barn on the left there, all covered in ivy. It caught my eye with my camera bag, you see. And then another one place down here, there's like a sort of a way through, like a track, but I think it just goes to a house, that one. And then a bit further down on the left, there's a very sort of ultra-modern bungalow to sell, which I only just noticed the other day. And it's actually not a bad position because I thought, well, I wouldn't actually live down there on that steep slope, but it's actually right near the bottom. Is that the for sale sign there? That's it on the left, look. And it doesn't look ultra modern because it's built of stone and tile, but inside it's very modern. Not everyone's cup of tea. I was just a bit surprised what it was like inside. And you come out quite abruptly, you're out of the village, and then on the left there's a little bridge over the river, but it's like a private bridge to one or two houses on the other side, so you're not really supposed to drive over it. So I have done in the past, but I nearly stopped and had a look, but then I thought, well, actually you can see the river further on anyway. And on the right here there's a roofless building, like a little stone shed. Can you see it there? It's only quite recently lost its roof. It's a shame really, because that has a bit of history, because all this area here used to be ironstone mining and ironstone workings, and I believe they used to keep in that shed like explosives. So it was well built and away from everything else, and it sort of survived as a cattle shelter or livestock shelter for probably 100 years. There's another quite tricky little junction here, which it would be bad enough at any time because it's sort of steep as you come up to it. But this time they've got traffic lights on there because they're doing what used to be Fletcher's garage, Honeybee Nest garage. It's all been removed and they're kind of making a platform to presumably to turn it into a house. I had to stop a bit sudden there because it's rather confusing. There's no lights on this side street, but it just says traffic may be coming from either way or something like that. It's under traffic light control there. That used to be on the right there. That was Fletcher's little garage where we used to get my bikes MOT'd. And they've moved to the top of Glaisdale now. I think it's called Green's Garage or something like that. station on the left. And then I was stopped down here taking photos of the old bridge and the railway bridges and the bike under the bridge and stuff like that for about 20 minutes. Because I was quite surprised that there's nobody else there. Just one car and they've gone off walking. So now, rather than go up Limber Hill, I've taken a left turn, and I don't really know the names of these farms up here, but it's another favourite little route. Because you come up here and then it used to be, is it Tony Richards? Anyway, he was like a country singer, or a folky country singer. I assume he's still on the go. I don't know whether he actually does any singing. I don't really know if he's died or what. He was more like an 80s thing. Yeah, there's a little farm up here. It's a funny little area. It's like sort of, it's a bit like a lot of landslips or something have happened. It's all humps and bumps, but it seems to be reasonably stable now. It's a bit wet though. And then on the right, a little bit further on, there's this little barn which I took a photo of it several years ago now, and it was just at the rather quaint stage where it had a bit of ivy on the edge of the roof, and it had been sort of had the new doors and things put on. But now look at it, someone has taken the trouble to cut the ivy off. But there's a great big hole in the roof, so it's not long for this world. That'll soon just collapse, that roof. Because that whether it could actually get permission to be a house is debatable, or it's like an Airbnb, isn't it? It's just going to fall in. And then quite suddenly you come up to the farm, which is right on the road here. This is actually better seen as you come down, to be honest. I should have swung the camera around there, but I forgot to do that. And then you come up this relatively steep bank, and quite suddenly you get a really striking view out over another farm in the dip. And unexpectedly along the roadside there was a strip of sunflowers and things, which looks like quite a nice little photo, but I couldn't quite be bothered to do it because it wasn't really spectacular. There just was a few sunflowers on the edge of the road there. Not what you expect to see up there. I mean, it's been sown for like bird or pheasant cover, because there was other things in there like millet and some sort of wheat, like it looked like a bearded wheat. I stopped there and then I noticed a car come with a little van coming along, so I had to stop longer than I expected to stop. That strange noise, it's trying to do wind reduction or something. It's not the actual bike noise. Now I've skipped straight on to Lilome, where I'd been taking two or three photos of the boarding and the bridge, which is like an absolute classic spot, and also the church behind. And ahead of me there is quite nice too, there's sort of a curving road dives between houses and the garage. But I only went a few yards and decided to stop because one of the people I follow on Instagram, who's like a professional photographer, he'd taken a photo of the old garage and post office here, and I thought, I think I'll just stop and do it. He took it from the other side though. But I quite like this because you can see the sign on the end about it being a post office, and you can see it's a garage as well, but it should. Because this is one of the problems. I mean, it's not their fault because it's mainly just like a family owned or even one or two people doing it. So when you would actually might have actually topped up with a bit, because I was a bit low on fuel, you can't even get any. And that's the nearest fuel station to us, and it's about 7 miles away, 5 or 6 miles away at least, and a very windy road. So I don't really know why I left this part on, because in fact my battery was running low on this. I'd never really run it for that long before. It's recorded. Well, this video is now over 30 minutes and I've cut out quite a bit. So it must have recorded for nearly an hour, certainly 45 minutes. So it was a bit miffed because there's quite a nice bit further on where you go through under and over the railway. But I did start it, but it only ran for about 3 seconds and shut off again, so that was the end of that. So that's the end of this first serious 360 video. For some reason I had that camera since about May, and I've only really played about with it. I've never tried to do this, which was part of it, what I wanted to do with it. Attach it on there and use it like this. The end.